Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. You guys, tomorrow's July 4th. That's exciting. Are you guys doing anything fun for July 4th? I would love to know. David and I just got back on a trip. We had a really awesome meeting in Atlanta. So, shout out to all of our Atlanta peeps. We went to Atlanta and did a meeting on Saturday there. It was absolutely beautiful. Heard some incredible testimonials from so many different people on the business side, on the product side. That was just super cool to be able to witness. And then we stayed in town for a few extra days because my father-in-law lives there and my kids haven't seen grandpa in a little while. So we decided to stay and do some family time, which was amazing. And then we flew back yesterday, last night. And yeah, it was an absolutely amazing time. So I am grateful to be with you here this morning. And something on my trip, I can't even remember what it was now, sparked me to talk to you guys about self-love. And it's interesting because I I didn't always have love for myself. And, for anybody that has been here with me on these calls, you guys probably know a little bit of my story. I went through a lot of violence, sexual abuse as a child, grew up into my teens, was severely depressed, suicidal, absolutely just devastated from what had happened in my first 10 years of my life. And by the age of 13, I started doing hard drugs and drinking. And then from 13 to 25, I it was kind of wild. It was kind of wild. And so I tried to I wanted to get sober, but I didn't think that I ever could. And so when I actually finally did, and detoxed in jail, got out of jail, decided to commit my life to sobriety. And I remember I had gotten sent to an outpatient rehab. I was supposed to go to an inpatient rehab, but I was a wedding planner at the time, and so my boss came in and begged for me to not have to go to an inpatient rehab because I had to do my classes or because I had to do my weddings because I was the wedding planner. And at that time, I was doing 120 weddings a year and I coordinated all of them. And so he was like, I kind of need her. So can you please let her do her rehab outside? And so I did. And I went to this outpatient rehab and the person that was teaching it, they sent us home with these little cards. And it was the first time that I had ever, I should actually go look and find my card because I kept it. But it was the first time that I ever uh, said an affirmation. And on the card, it had multiple affirmations. I should have gotten it for this morning because I know I kept it. But on the bottom of the card, it said, and you were supposed to look in the mirror when you said it, right? So you're supposed to go to the mirror, take your little card, read these affirmations about how you believe in yourself and how, you're grateful. And then at the end of the card, you're supposed, it says, I love you. And you're supposed to say, I love you to yourself in the mirror. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and looking at the card and looking at the mirror and looking at the card and just sobbing because I couldn't even get the words out to say to myself that I loved myself. And at that moment, it hit me that I didn't love myself. I never really had thought about it like that until I couldn't say it. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is really hard. So then and you're supposed to wake up and you're supposed to, say it every single morning and look in the mirror. And so I would do that. I would wake up and at the same time, while I was reading those affirmations in the morning, I also had started changing how I lived. So I started moving my body. I started eating healthy. I started hanging around different people. I started prioritizing my rest. I started doing different things in my life. And so as I started journaling, I started trying to reconnect back to a higher power because I had separated from my higher power when I was younger. And so I tried to reconnect and try to figure out what that relationship looked like for me. And so I'm like journaling and I'm doing all these things and I'm writing out my future life. I'm writing out my vision of a dream partner, like the person that I would want to spend my life with. And I'm doing all these things. And so every day, it's getting easier and easier for me to look at myself and tell myself I love myself. And then eventually it gets to the point where it's not just easier, like I'm saying it with enthusiasm and I mean it. And I'm like, I love you. Like I love you. And to this day now, that was 10 years ago. And now being at this point in my journey, the value of loving yourself is critical. Like it's absolutely critical. Besides the relationship that you have with Source, in my opinion, the creator, right? The whatever you believe in, the intelligence that runs through this entire experience that we're all having. Besides that relationship, the relationship that you have with yourself is the most important because that's going to be the driver and it's going to impact every single area of your life and how you decide to show up. And so I want to talk about self-love because I want you guys to be constantly focused on deepening this relationship with yourself because it's so easy to get distracted in life and focus on, every other people or business or all these different areas of your life. And I want you guys to focus on you and let that love be so strong and so anchoring that it makes everything in your life better. It makes your when and I want to talk to you about how, your self-love, how to deepen it in different areas of your life and what that really truly looks like. And so first way that that looks, and you guys know how I feel about your physical health. When it comes to your physical health, you no longer treat your body like it's a problem. You start to nourish it because you love it. So your relationship with what you're eating and how you're working out, it's not like you, because here, you guys, these are subtle shifts in how you show up. Okay. So, when you eat a certain way because you're like, oh, I don't want to get fat, right? And I say that because that's a common thing. Like, especially for females, we're like, from a young age, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be fat, right? All this marketing and programming that's been put into our minds. There's like this, it's terrifying to be fat, right? And so that's what we have like been programmed to. But you don't think like, oh, I don't want to do this because I don't want to be fat. You think, oh my gosh, I want to put this into my body because I want to nourish my body. I want to move my body because I want to be healthy and my body deserves movement. Not, oh, I don't want to, I have to move my body or else I'm going to gain weight. Do you see the do you see the changes in how you approach an action? And it's important that you recognize this because the one is based in shame and criticism, and one is based in love and support and kindness. And I promise you, the shame and the criticism will never be sustainable. That's not something you can do long term because it doesn't feel good. It's like, it's actually, it kind of relates to when it comes to parenting. If you're parenting as and there's a book that I read on it once by John Gray that was really good, but basically it talks about how you can have a relationship with a child and get them to do what you want them to do by beating them or being mean to them or critical to them, or you can do it through compassion and support and love. And the compassion and the support and love is way more sustainable and it bridges, like it creates like the connection, right? And so you have to think about that with yourself too. You're not just eating to look good. You're not just moving your body to look good. You're doing it to feel good. And because you deserve it, because you look at this body that you have and you're like, wow, you take me around. You let me have conversations. You let me have this human experience. Like because of you, body, I get to be here on my journey and I'm grateful for that. So I want to treat you as best as I possibly can because I love you. And so there doesn't have to be. You have the choice to switch how you approach things, okay? And so another way of showing that your body that you're grateful and that you love it is being connected to its communication, listening to how it's communicating with you. If your body is telling you something like, hey, our energy is low, or we have a headache, or this hurts, or whatever signal it's sending you, if you have some chronic condition or if you have diabetes or something, that's its way it's communicating, we have a problem. So instead of just ignoring it or trying to override it, listen to your body. Prioritize your rest, prioritize movement, prioritize healing because you genuinely love yourself and you care about how you feel, okay? This is important. Same thing when it comes to your mental and emotional health. you this is interesting because this one can be tricky to figure out how to approach it because sometimes well, a lot of the times, we forget that we're not our mind and we get tricked that we are our minds. And so our minds are extremely powerful in the sense that they create an illusion that you are them, that you are it, right? So as it's communicating and talking and regurgitating information and data, it's hard to discern what is you and what is actually your programming in your mind. So one of the things that I do is when things feel funky and something doesn't feel right or something feels energetically off or I don't really like the outcome of something necessarily, then I just sit, I try to pull myself back into the witness space and try to just witness patterns or witness, how things played out and do it without shame because I'm not a perfect parent or a perfect spouse or a perfect friend. And so I mess things up sometimes. And when I reflect back, I reflect back on my kids and probably my relationship the most. But when something happens, especially with my kids, it's easier for this to happen with my kids that I'm a little snappier than I should have been, or I said something I could have said better, or something happens that I'm like, that wasn't my best moment. That wasn't my best work. And so I'll take the time after that to reflect on it and be like, okay, the way that I showed up, was that a pattern or was that a program or like, why did I show up that way? And then try to be conscious about not showing up that same way. But I don't do it with shame. Don't do it with shame. Don't sit there and beat yourself up and be like, oh my gosh, I suck. I'm not a good parent. Don't do that. Just say, wow, I could have done that better. And here's how I could have done that better. And here's how I'm going to do it better next time. And that's it. It's literally that simple. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. And even if it warrants a communication with your kid and be like, yo, I didn't show up the best way. I just need to let you know that. I'm aware of that. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to get better at that next time. Then great. But no self-judgments, no self-criticism. Just hey, this is how I could do better, and this is how I'm going to fix it. Okay, because how you speak about yourself is to yourself is critical. And I've listened to so many people talk bad about themselves out loud. How many of you do that? How many of you guys call yourself stupid sometimes, or call yourself dumb, or say, oh, that was dumb, or oh, so dumb of me? Just these little remarks that you make that seem innocent, or they seem like they just flow out of your mouth. You don't do that. Don't talk to yourself like that. You're not dumb, you're not stupid, you're none of these things. You're literally a human being who is imperfect. That's it. That's totally it. And it's these little tiny innocent feeling like remarks that you make, they're not innocent. It's programming, it puts a level of programming on you. And what's really important to remember, it's also kind of, to be honest, it's also a form of a victim mentality, because the moment you say that I'm not, once you claim to be something, once you this is like a little revelation I'm having. Once you've claimed to be something, you're no longer taking responsibility for changing it, because you've claimed it and said, this is who I am. So if we ever say, oh, I'm a bad friend, spouse, parent, and you just sit and claim that, then you're wasting your time when you could be going and changing it. And you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Drop a one if that's clicking for you. Okay, if you're spending the time just claiming something and leaving it, that when you could be going and changing it, that's a form of victimhood, to be honest with you. And you guys, I used to be queen victim, okay? Just so just so everybody knows, queen victim over here. That's why I drank and did what I did, because I was like, oh my gosh, my parents, and how could they let this happen to me? And why would God let this happen to me? Like, I was queen victim until I woke up eventually and was like, wait a minute, other people have had hard shit happen to them too, and other people have had really hard lives, and they're crushing it, and they're doing amazing things. Then why can't I? And then I started to look around, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't make sense. And so, what I want you guys to remember is that you have the ability to change who you are at any time. Like, literally, a complete rewiring of who you are at any time. And it's so exciting because once you realize you can do that and you can change like who you are and how you are and what you like and what you don't like and how you speak and the energy that you bring to a situation and the impact you have on yourself and people, like you can change it all. Like you are completely reprogrammable, which is super cool to acknowledge that about yourself. So the moment you so don't claim, like you guys don't claim the don't state I am blank. Don't do that. Don't waste your time saying that. Say, look, take the time to be like, how am I showing up? How do I want to show up differently? What do I have to change to become this greater version of myself? And then you just start wire by wire, program by program, beep, 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 and just doing it, just doing the work. And you guys, the work is fun. Like I know there's moments that are really hard, of course, but like the work is fun because life becomes funner when you've done the work. Like everything is more enjoyable. So anyways, those little, well, I got kind of, because I had a little revelation there. I was like, wait a minute, we're wasting time. Okay, so I want you guys to, really focus on also one thing that was big for me was reparenting myself because that was another area that I spent time being, it's when it's really easy to say when you grow up, any of my people out there who didn't have parents who were very involved or showed them love or were MIA or whatever. So both of my parents were not really involved. Now I'm really super close to my mom, and she's like, I'm so sorry, I love you, and she's made up for it in my adulthood. But like and earlier in life, both of my parents weren't there. And I remember thinking if two of the people that are supposed to love me the most don't, and they're not protecting me and they're not there, then how could I love myself? Which was all jacked up. Completely opposite, really, because it's nobody's job to love you. Nobody has a, obligation to love you except you, your life. This is your life. This is your journey. This is your mission. This is your future. This is your story. This is your everything. Nobody has to love you. And when I realized that I'm like, I don't need you guys to love me for me to love me. I can love me because I'm the one having this experience and I get to decide what my life looks and feels like. And so that also changed for me. So for anybody out there who kind of went through that as a child. I understand and I see you, and I just want to I want to remind you that there's nobody that gets to dictate your story. There's nobody that gets to dictate the quality of your life. That is your choice, and it depends on the love that you decide to have for yourself. And so, there isn't a time frame that happens of reparenting and connecting and showing yourself compassion and showing yourself love and being able to show up in ways that you didn't feel like you could as a kid and honoring that version of you. And there is a journey for that. And so just know that that is available for you even if your parents weren't available for you. And then relationships, this is when it comes to self-love, you have to acknowledge that the relationships that you choose are going to reflect how much love you have for yourself. And because when you don't have the love for yourself, then and this happens too. Sometimes we don't love ourselves, but we become obsessed with loving someone else. And I've done that multiple times. I was actually really good at that. I was so good at jumping into relationships and and focusing on them instead of focusing on me. And it's really easy to put the attention on other people and be like, oh, well, I am so in love with them and I just, anybody Anybody ever do that? Anybody ever just become like obsessed with being with that person and then you don't do anything for yourself. You completely lose your identity. You don't know who you are anymore by the end of the relationship because all you did was focus on that other person. And so I did that multiple times in my relationships. And that was interesting because, yeah, by the end of the relationship, not only And they weren't even worthy of it. Like they weren't even, one person specifically, he was super abusive and he was super mean. And I told myself at a young age, I will never date somebody abusive because that's what I grew up witnessing. So I said I would never do that. And then I did that. And then I stayed with him. And then I did everything for him and never focused on me. And then at the end of 2.5 years, I'm like, I don't know who I am. And I am very devastated and depressed. And that's actually what ended up triggering the most intense piece of my addiction, which landed me in jail for the third time. And that is what triggered that was the catalyst to me getting sober, which was cool. But for those 2.5 years, and at the same time, I do believe everything happens. Any of the obstacles and challenges that are placed on our path, there is something in there that we are trying to be taught. And I know that it's hard to look at it that way, but that's just what I believe. You don't have to believe that, but that's just what I believe. When you are handed something challenging and there's an obstacle and there's something unfolding in your story, there is a reason for that happening. And it's our jobs to be the researchers and to be the witness, pull ourselves out of the story enough to see, what am I trying to be taught here? Where is the lesson for me here? And we have to ask ourselves that. And sometimes this could be you or this could be someone that they have like repeated kind of like similar things that happen to them over and over and over and over again. And the reality is, or what I think is that they haven't pulled out their lesson yet, which is why the reality keeps repeating itself, because the universe will continue to say, hey, here you need to learn this, here you need to learn this, here you need to learn this, until you actually do it. I truly, call me crazy, but I truly think that this is like one giant kind of like video game setup type of thing, that if you don't beat a level, you don't get to move on and you don't get to go to the next level. And that's why they say new levels have new devils, which, because you knock out something that you needed to learn, and that pattern and that occurrence stops showing up, and then you go to the next one and you're like, all right, here we go, and then something else happens. And I remember those patterns repeated for me, like especially when in relationships. Oh my gosh, I had so many patterns repeating with men over and over and over again, and it was like, gosh, it was so exhausting. The funny part, well, yeah, no, the funny part is I always thought it was them. That was the funny part. I was like, it's you're the problem, I gotta go. And then later in life, now I look back and I was like, oh, it was me. I was the problem. And so now I get that. And I learned that, and thank goodness, now I'm with David, and David's, he's my life partner. But thank goodness that I had learned that and broke my pattern, so I was able to finally have a relationship that was nourishing and awesome, because my past ones were not. And so you just need to remember that the one of the strongest acts of self-love is who you allow in your energetic field, who you allow in your space. And I don't really like the word boundaries. Like that's kind of it's hard to really explain to you why I don't like that word. It's more like energetic agreements, I think is more appropriate when it comes to where you choose to put your energy, with whom, and what energetic agreements you're allowing, because it is an agreement. Because when you allow people in your space, and it doesn't have to, a boundary is like, you're never allowed here, where like an energetic agreement is kind of like, okay, I'm agreeing to let you in, I'm not at this moment. And it's more flowy, because sometimes people change, sometimes things change. You don't have to just be like, there is a boundary, you're never allowed around again. Like, you have to trust your own discernment of like, you can trust the decisions that you make. And that's one of the cool things about self-love too, is once you really connect with yourself and you know that you're honoring yourself regularly, consistently, I don't ever get worried that I'm going to let myself down. Like, I've just committed. You commit so many times to yourself, and you show up so many times in all these areas that I'm talking about, that I don't, there's no concern of like, oh, am I gonna let you down? Like, I know I have my back all the time, 100%, but it's a relationship that's been built and built and built and built over time. So, um, one of the strongest ways is looking at your relationships. Who is allowed to have an energetic agreement with you and coming into your space. Okay. So just important to know, and because there's all types of, and it's deceiving. Some people are very deceiving, and I'm aware of that, okay? Like emotional breadcrumbing and like the love bombing, and like I know how confusing it can all look, but there's also once you've really connected and spent time alone and in stillness, do not do not never sit with yourself alone. Like that has to happen. For you to actually hear the truth, it's in stillness. For you to actually connect with that higher version of you, it's in stillness, because your highest version of you is it's not the mind, and the mind is loud, right? The mind is just the computer. The mind's just the all the data, people's opinions, things that you've seen on TV, things you learned as a kid, things, all that all jumbled into one. And that's what you're going to hear on the day to day when everything's loud and you're hustling and bustling and moving through life. The mind is going to be the one that's the loudest. It's turned up the most. But if you can practice your meditation and you can sit in stillness, the mind will eventually quiet down, and you'll just get these little it's like little whispers or knowings. That's your highest self. That's where you take action. That's where you go for truth. So if you guys have done our 10-day challenge, then you know that there's a section of quiet time, and it's there for a reason, because that is your time to connect with your highest self, not your mind. You do not need to be connected to your mind all day. Your mind is great for putting data entry and making plans and deciding what groceries need to get picked up because you got to make dinner. Like that's all mind stuff, and it's awesome, love it. But when you want clear direction, you need it from your highest self, and that comes in stillness. Okay. Another way that you show self-love is through your business and what you're doing with your life. I remember when I was a wedding planner. Okay, so this was intense, you guys. I'm going to tell you this story because this is really emotional. So when I first got into wedding planning, I worked at a club. I had just quit culinary school. It was a 2-year degree. I left a year early because I had to focus on money because I was making a lot of money at this club that I was working at. And one of my classes was a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. And I'm working at a club until 3, 4 in the morning, and I'm wasted by that time. So there's no way I'm driving to DC. I lived in Washington, DC. There's no way that I was driving from Woodbridge, which is like 20 minutes outside of there, to DC. I was like, that's not happening. And so I was still drunk. But at 7 in the morning, I was still I was still drunk. So I was like, that's not happening. So I missed that class. It was my sanitation class. So I aced all my cooking classes, but my sanitation class is what held me back. And so I ended up leaving that job because new ownership came in and they replaced all the staff. And I went to the place next door where it was a wedding venue. And the husband or the wife that worked there kept trying to get me to work there. He was like, you have to go work for my wife. You have to go work for her. And so when I lost my job, I went over there and she was like, I don't really know what to do, but you can come work here. I don't know where to put you. We've never done, it was their first year in weddings, and none of them had ever done weddings before. But she was a really successful businesswoman. She was a broker. And her husband was a super successful entrepreneur too. So they felt confident running the business. So they brought me in, and that woman ended up being the strongest woman I had ever met in my entire life. She was my best friend. She was my business partner, or my boss. She was my mom. She was my second mom. She took me to get my wisdom teeth taken out. She took me to buy my first car. I mean, I bought it, but she stayed through the whole process. She was there when I moved out of my abusive boyfriend's house. She helped me come pack all my shit to move into her basement. Like she was my absolute like closest person in my life, and she taught me everything that I ended up learning about elegance and how to carry myself as a woman, and how to speak and how to articulate myself, and how to go from some girl that worked at the club and was half naked to somebody who could do sales and sell weddings and become one of the top wedding venues in the DC area. And so that journey was really interesting. And I, what happened was I had gotten my first DUI when I started. Okay, great. That one's done. About a year later, I had I was having issues coming into work on time because I would be up all night fighting with my boyfriend at the time, the abusive one. And so I would have to go to work in the morning and I had a black eye, or I was still, not emotionally okay to go in. And so I had some issues getting into work. And we had a relationship where she loved me so much that she would protect me. And I was also her hardest worker. Like I work my ass off. That's one thing that I'm not shy to do. I work super hard. So, and I sold all our weddings. I brought all our sales up. I was our top salesperson, our top coordinator, but I was going through this on a personal level. And so I remember when I went and I got my second DUI, and we had already had so many issues, and I knew how like she was torn between business and my personal relationship with her. And so I remember when I got my second DUI, I remember sitting in jail before I got let out and thinking she's gonna have to let me go. Like because she had talked about giving me the company too. So I was like, I'm gonna own this company. Like this is my baby, and it was my baby. And so we had talked about it, and she was like, I want to bring you in as an owner. It doesn't make sense to put you on the paperwork right now because we're in debt. We're still paying off loans, and it would put you in debt. So, but the plan was to hand me the business. And so I'm sitting there and I tried to call her and she didn't answer. It was like in the middle of the night. And then the next day she was out of town. She was in Florida. She came back into town, and I remember knowing that she was going to have to let me go. I had been there for 5 years, and we built the whole company together. We did most of the weddings together. I mean, like she was literally my mom and best friend in one person. And so she came into town and we sat down, and she was like, Brooke, if I keep protecting you, I enable you. If I don't let you go and let you go fly, then I'm gonna just keep enabling you. She's like, I have to let you go. And we sat there and we sobbed. And I knew she was right. I knew that she had protected me so much that I wasn't gonna learn my lesson if she didn't let me go fall flat on my face. And so we sat there and we just sobbed together. And I wasn't mad at her. I knew that she was right, and I knew that I had to go figure it out. And so it was such an emotional experience. And to this day, it makes me emotional because I love that woman so much. I still see her sometimes. I go to Virginia, and we talk throughout the year too. But so I left, and I was then 30 days later. So I was in this mess, right? Because I had the second DUI. I'm in this mess, and there was the competitor that was like 5 miles away that kept trying to hire me because I would go play golf there with my abusive boyfriend. We played golf there a lot together, and it was also a golf course slash wedding venue. So the guy, the owner or the general manager that worked there, he would try to hire me. He's like, come work here, come work here. I was like, you know that I can't, like, no. And so I went straight there, and I was like, I'll come on, but I need a sign-on bonus, and I need this and I need this because I had like $12,000 in fines, and all this money I had to pay. And they were like, we'll do it. And I was like, okay, great. Then 30 days into that job, I got my third DUI, and that's the one that they didn't want to let me out of jail. So that was really intense. And so the there's a reason that I was telling you this whole story, but why was I telling you that story? There's a specific purpose that you guys had to know that part of the story. Um, because I eventually left. I went there, and then after that, I got sober. So you guys, that was 10 years ago. I just celebrated 10 years in May, end of May, which is really exciting. But that experience, why was I telling you about that? Me. Yeah, self-love. I was telling you guys about self-love, but there was a connection specifically to that story. You guys, that was so emotional. That time of my life was like, I literally had to like contemplate who it was that I wanted to be, because everything that I had planned on, that was my future. Like I had planned on owning that place and working there and being there and taking over, and like that got taken away. I had to start over. That's when I got when I went to jail. I had to move back in with my mom and get an ankle bracelet put on. Shit went crazy. And maybe I'll remember, but I telling you this and you guys hearing part of this journey and hearing what I went through, I want you guys, I hope that breathes a little bit of life into you, into the ability for you to create a new version of yourself at any point. Absolutely any point of your life, you can decide, I don't necessarily love the exact way that I'm showing up, and I can create a whole new version of me at any time in my life. And you have to, when you look at it like that, the game totally changes. Everything totally changes. And so, how you show up in your business and the purpose that you have, the guy that I ended up, oh, that's what I think, that's what I was going to tell you. So, that guy, the general manager that I ended up working for, he tried to get with me and he was very inappropriate multiple times. And we all ended up drinking together and going on like the whole staff and going on boats and like doing shit because we were on a marina. And he was super inappropriate. And I ended up turning him down multiple times. And he became really mean to me after that. And that's where I was going with it. He became so mean. He would tell people that I was stupid. He would talk down to me. And he was, there was the general manager and then it was me and then it was the rest of the staff. And he would call me stupid in front of other people. He would, and it was because I turned him down and he would like send me inappropriate pictures like in the middle of the night and it was awful. And so once I turned him down and he knew like I'm not interested in you, then that's when he got super mean and he just made my life hell. Like he would send me these mean ass emails. He would come into my office and start screaming at me. He would one of the emails he sent me on New Year's Day, he like emailed me. He was like, New Year's, same old shit. And then he's like talking terrible about how some stuff that I did that he was mad about. Like he was so mean. And so I got to the point where I was so upset and like I had so much anxiety that I would like pull up to work and I would like have to prep myself to go into work. I'm like, you can do this, get in there. And so I would go into work and I would like run past his office and like go into my office. It was a shit show. So that happened. That was 4 years that I was there. And eventually I decided I was gonna quit. I went on a trip. I hadn't gone traveling in it was been years since I had taken trips. And so I went on a trip and on the trip back, I was on this boat and I'm like going back to the airport and I just start sobbing and I'm like, I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm out. I'm outie. And I did. I got all my stuff prepped for the next 8 months and finished wedding season. And then I ended up moving in November. But that was my point of telling you that whole journey that I went through. And there was alignment for a long time. And then when I moved to my new business, there was not alignment there anymore. And there's times that we stay stuck in these situations because part of it was I was so identified with being a wedding planner. I was like, this is my future. I am going to be a wedding planner forever. And I had to release that identity that I was like, I don't necessarily know what I'm going to do or where I'm going to be or who or what is going to happen, but I'm not going to do this anymore. And I have this no longer feels aligned. And I know because my body's telling me. Your body will tell you, hey, we're not in alignment anymore. And you'll experience it through anxiety or through stress or through overwhelm or through shortness of breath, right? Because that's a huge one. You catch yourself holding your breath or you can't breathe. That's your body telling you it's bracing. Okay. So you have to get really aligned with what you're doing in your business and what you're doing in your work. And so, and you're going to change and evolve, hopefully. Like that's the goal, that you change and evolve so much that people are like, I don't recognize you. That's the goal. And that you don't recognize yourself. You're like, I just keep evolving and the new chapters, new chapters, new chapters, new chapters. Okay. Now, when it comes to your finances, this is a big one because that's a way that people self-sabotage. It can be a crutch. Just the reality is, some people use it as a hit of dopamine. Some people use it as a hit of happiness. And I know people in my life like that. And, there's been conversations because I'm very outspoken. If you're friends with me, you'll never have to wonder if I'm sugarcoating things. I will talk to you very directly. And so I've had these conversations with people that I love that I'm like, hey, you need to be aware that this is what's happening. Like, what do we have to do to connect your happiness to something besides spending money? Because you're it's important that you understand that money is an energetic currency. And if you treat it, there's a difference between treating it frivolously and also being like, you know what, I deserve this. Or like you have to find that balance between just blowing it because you have a belief system around money that is not empowering. Like it's your job to find out your belief systems with everything in life, but specifically money too, because money's important, especially if you have a family. And so you got to identify, okay, what are my belief systems behind money? Do I spend money in a like this whole emotional shopping thing, like that sometimes is like funny to people. Like it's not funny if it's out of control, because I know people who have gotten themselves into thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in debt because they're so unhappy and they only know how to go spend money, and it doesn't fix it. And so it just makes it worse. And so I just want you guys to be aware, and I see in the comments, I am an emotional spender and eater. That comment, and I love you so much, Anna Rita, because I'm gonna use this as an example because I know there's other people on this call that have say these things to themselves. I want you guys to go and write an affirmation that you actually want to be. If you want to remain the I am, and then whatever you insert after it, whatever you say about yourself, if you want to remain that way, keep saying it. If you don't, I want you after this call to go write what you actually truly want. And I don't want you to ever repeat what you said on the first one ever again, because you're just going to keep rewiring it. Okay. So go do that. That's part of the work. The work that sometimes seems so elusive that people talk about, like the inner work. That's part of the work, is identifying, hey, that wiring is no longer allowed to be here. It's my job to rewire it. I'm going to have to create a new belief and truth that I speak out loud. Here's what it is. And you just rewire it, rewire it, rewire it, rewire it. Call your friend. You can call me and just be like, hi, I am da da da, and just say your affirmation and hang up. Like, if you want someone to practice it on, like, text me, hi, Brooke, I just want to let you know I am da da da, and say your new affirmation. If you want help and practice wiring it, do it. I'm here. All right. I got your back. And then your spiritual connection, this is a way of self-love. This is a form of self-love, because there has to be an acknowledgement, in my opinion, and you can believe whatever you believe, but there has to be an acknowledgement that something outside of us has weaved an intelligence here. Like, and you can call it whatever you want, because there's so many different, intelligences to connect to, and everyone has their own. And I just don't believe there's a right or wrong. I believe that you connect with whatever is there, but you have to acknowledge that there is something super beyond intelligent that like that we can't even fathom, that flows through life, right? And so having a connection with that, you realize that self-love is divine love. And because you stop seeking that source outside of you, and you start embodying it within, this greatness, this intelligence, this magnificence. Like, you can't even put it into words. Like, it's not even describable in words, because it's so beautiful. And some people, you can call it the kingdom. How do you, instead of searching for it outside, how do you try just to embody it within? And it's important, because that's your highest self. That gives you the ability to connect to something that's so strong and so magnificent that you can try to get closer to every single day. Did you guys know that the real purpose to a marriage is not to complete another person, it's to use that person to get closer to God. You use each other to get closer and closer and closer, and because you guys are mirrors, right? Your relationship is a mirror, so you're mirroring back to each other, like growth, 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 to get closer to embodying something that's so beautiful that you go and change the world with it. That's the point of a marriage. Okay, so and when I really realized that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. That's amazing. And so that's why that's why you don't give up in the union. You use everything. You use every challenge, every obstacle, every argument, every disagreement, every hard moment, every part that you really screw up and you're like, ooh, I really messed that up. You use all of it. You use every disconnection to reconnect stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's one way that you're leveling up in your relationship, where you go from trying to be right and arguing to, we need to reconnect as fast as possible. And David, when we took that turn in our relationship, where now if something happens and we're like, and we feel a disconnection and we feel the energy, like, kind of bloop, we're like, we need to reconnect. We need to reconnect. Repair, repair, repair. And we go into like repair mode. Okay. Whereas before it was like, I'm not reconnecting with you until I'm right. And so, that's a shift. I had to teach that to my daughters actually while we were gone, because they were fighting, and I'm like, you need to reconnect. And then last thing is your environment and your lifestyle. I know this one's a little long, so I'm going to cut. I'm going quick, you guys, but your environment and your lifestyle, it's important that this reflects your self-love. Like, how you respect the space that you live in. The clothes that you put on your body, how you how you tend to the things that you own, that are yours. Do you live in clutter? Do you live in chaos? Do you live in stimulate in too much stimulation? Do you create beauty around you? If you come to my house, I have like 47 plants. I'm a plant fanatic. If I had more time, I would have more plants because if anyone has a lot of plants, you know that they're like children. You have to take care of them and like repot them and like it's a whole thing. And so your space becomes your sanctuary, not a source of stress. So you guys, David and I are spending our July 4th literally going through every single crevice of this home and purging. Like I was like, this is the perfect day because everyone's going to be busy doing the holiday. And so we don't have to really work much on July 4th. I'm sure we'll work a little bit, but most people will be active, which is awesome. And I'm going to go through every crevice of this house. I usually do it once a year, but the last time I did it was like March of last year, and literally no corner or stone unturned in this house. Every single piece of my house got touched, and either it's staying or it's going. And so it's been longer than I usually like, but we've been so busy with work that it's been hard. So that is happening, and it's important because you don't realize the weight that your environment has on you, you guys, until you take that weight off and you declutter and you get rid of stuff. You get rid of things that you might have an emotional connection to that you no longer have business having an emotional connection to. Like, go through every crevice of your house. It is vital that you do this, and you will feel the weight come off. Okay. I was going to talk a little bit more about um, just how to be checking in with yourself, but I will save that for another call. I will let you guys go because it has been 49 minutes, but I want to say that I appreciate everybody who shows up and sits on these calls with me and listens to me without judgment. And I love you. And so I know David's like, Brooke, you've been too long. But I just want you guys to know that I appreciate you guys that show up here and listen and are my friends. So I love you guys. Thank you for being here. And we will see you on tomorrow's call. Bye guys. Let me send you a heart. Meet.